Hi, panel. As a small bar business operator in the CBD, I think our main concern is the second lockdown. What do you think the second lockdown will actually look like? And what do you think that impact would be on the hospitality and tourism industry?
Let's just step through this. You've got a small bar, you've reopened, you survived the first time round by doing delivery stuff. I mean, if there is another lockdown, do you think you'll go bust? Is that the reality?
Oh, it's always like, there's always a potential for it. And I do feel when Gigi was saying it, it's so scary. And I've seen many of my staff, and it's such a small community as well. I've seen a lot of mental health issues, a lot of students having to go home because job seeker is just not there for them.
So do you find yourself being torn between these arguments?
Exactly, yeah. So I'd like to kind of get maybe like a clearer understanding of what the second lockdown would look like and how that would impact a small business like mine.
George, you're in Melbourne where there is a second lockdown. How hard is it?
It's actually, to be honest, it's knocked the stuffing out of the state, and you could see it in Dan Andrews's face when he presents every day. In fact, I've got a lot of respect for what he's trying to do at the moment, but I think he feels what we feel, that a second lockdown is a form of policy failure, and we shouldn't be in this position. Unfortunately, we are, and we're going to have to tough it out. But the difficulty, Natalie, when you look at what second lockdown means, second lockdown. Look, I hope New South Wales doesn't go through to second lockdown phase, but if they do, the only heads up I can give you is insist that your government give you a little more notice than the Victorians got, because the sense we got in Victoria was we're going to try a couple of things before we go back to hard lockdown. Whoops, this thing is out of control now. Now, I know it's tricky with the data, especially if there's a silent transmission. I mean, this virus, and the really problematic thing, the diabolical thing about this virus is it still hasn't properly declared its hand. You know, it can hop from person to person without making either party sick. We don't know what the long-term health effects are for those who survive it, and we don't know if you can get it again. So there are all these things that are still unknown in the handling of this crisis. So as I say, if you have to go to a second lockdown, just hope the government gives you some notice. Just hope your customers look after you, look after your staff. But whatever you do, try and hang on. I wouldn't give up now, because at the other end, if you can hang on, I can guarantee you the thing that happened for those few weeks when we were open again in Victoria, everybody rushed back essentially to their favourite small business to say, welcome back. So I hope you don't have to go through it.
Karen, you must know so many businesses that are in a similar position to Natalie. Are you scared of the prospect of a second lockdown?
Yeah, I think everybody's scared about it, but I think we do agree that safety and the lives of everybody is more important than the civic duty that we have as a community. And I think the opportunity has been during this time that communities have really rallied together, and they really do want to support and care for each other. And we're fortunate that, you know, I think there is that other businesses are coming together to help each other. You know, we've got one of the restaurateurs, or a couple of the restaurants, because they're not opening due to safety reasons, they're now freezing with the local supermarket and working together. So I think it's an opportunity to collaborate, innovate, and try to do our best potentially a second lockdown. I think it's going to be challenging. Very
Bill,
challenging.
do you say to Natalie, look, if this happens, if the numbers spike in New South Wales like they did in Victoria, you're just going to have to deal with it?
Well, of course. I mean, the virus doesn't obey Australian political rules. It isn't a nice virus. It obeys the laws of physics, chemistry and biology. It finds the weakest link, as it did in Victoria. Hopefully it won't in New South Wales, but it could at any time. And if we're prepared to kid ourselves that there is some stable level of coronavirus able to be maintained for the foreseeable future, well, that's just not borne out by any evidence or facts. The virus is either going up or it's going down and hopefully out. They're the two choices. We know what to do now after 4 or 5 months of experience to knock it out in Australia and New Zealand. It's not pie in the sky.
Bill,
knocking it out would make the life of people who run businesses a lot more predictable, a lot better, and we would see the sort of recovery that we're seeing now in New Zealand, that's taking place in Western Australia and in where Simon Birmingham is from, in Adelaide.
Can I just ask you, but what is the ultimate end game here? Because I've not heard on any politician's lips the idea of, oh, let's maybe open the borders at some stage. And, you know, in typical years, the dollars that we get from international tourism and international education that feed into our economy are very substantial. We're talking about maybe 5% of GDP. That's not nothing. That's like comparable to the amount that we're losing in this recession at the moment. And I'm wondering, you know, so suppose that in a year we have somehow done as you're suggesting, which I don't actually think is possible, but if somehow we did, and we have no coronavirus, or we have nobody sick or dying from it anyway, we probably have some people who are walking around who've had it. When, you know, do we just say, well, too bad for all those hoteliers who were servicing the international tourism community, too bad for the university sector, which has lost so many casual staff and so many fixed-term staff, so many students, and, you know, so much revenue, and we just say, well, too bad, we're no longer going to have...
I don't think anybody's saying too bad. We need to protect people. We absolutely need to make sure that if you lose your job in the end, that what you end up relying on is going to be enough to keep your head above water. We need to try and keep as many jobs going as we possibly can, and we need to have an open mind about the future of JobKeeper. We can be flexible about that. I think that's absolutely right, and we've said to the government, you must be careful about the way you transition out of JobKeeper, because we are not out of the woods yet. And thirdly, we need to invest in great jobs. Great jobs. So in case, let's hope your business doesn't go down, but if it does, you've got the next future being presented to you. We need great work done in care services. We've got 100,000 home care packages to be delivered. Great businesses there. Profit, not-for-profit, mixed approach to it. We've got fantastic jobs in a green energy future. These are the things, the OECD saying it, Hamish, the IMF saying it, we should be investing and use the fiscal levers, frankly not going back to Reagan and Thatcher, but creating the new future that we really can, through a very, very tough time, have a sense of hope and optimism. If this business doesn't work this time, I've got a next phase of what it could look like.